Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield and this is the Zwiftcast. Coming up on this episode, it's July and July is all about Le Tour, but Zwift is very visible thanks to a huge ad campaign we discussed. The fence is a few weeks in. How's it working out? We talked to one of Zwift's most experienced ride leaders. And Eurobike is coming. What might we expect for indoor riders from the world's biggest bike show? Plus, it looks like another course extension, or maybe two, are imminent. Well, after a little break from the usual trident configuration of the Zwiftcast, and I don't mean that in a Movistar Leaders way, we're a bit more organised than that. Actually, it'd be harder to be less organised than that. We're back together, my fellow podcasters, Shane Miller and Nathan Guerra are back in their usual seats. Shane, g'day, mate.
How are we doing? Good to be back. Can't wait to get this episode on the road.
Yep, lots to discuss as usual. Nathan Guerra, yo, dude.
Yo, dudes. How's it going?
Going very well, thank you. Shane, because it's a bit of time since we've actually all been together, I really do think it's about time we talked about Baby Llama. Let's talk about Baby Llama. We've not talked about Baby Llama. You seem to have scheduled this one peculiarly badly, dude. Baby Llama is due right in the middle of Eurobike. What happened there, fella?
Look, what can I say? I've got no idea how these things happen. And look, there haven't been enough Zwiftcast recordings or Zwift updates to keep me occupied. Next minute, Baby Llama.
Oh man!
I mean, this is your first child. We've not really talked about this. Your first child and Von's, obviously. Are you excited?
Yeah, taking it as it comes. I've been really, really busy, which we'll get to in this episode. So I've been flat out, and Von's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're like, what's going to happen here? We're only a few weeks out now because it's our Eurobike release, first week of September. No, it's all pretty cruisy. Look,
The Eurobike release, that's like the literal. What is Llama bringing to the bicycle world? Baby Llama.
I can tell you this one's not going to be quiet. I'm guaranteeing you that. But look, I've got to say the support we have from both family and the technology these days from the medical side of things and the support we have in Australia is second to none. It's been absolutely brilliant. So no, we're looking forward to it.
Yes, as we were just discussing just before we got going on this podcast, I think people who are already parents, they kind of don't really need to say anything at all to prospective parents or about to be parents because you just don't know till it hits you, do you, Nathan? Really?
No, you don't. I mean, it's a whole, the universe shifts, that's for sure. And good luck and all the blessings around all of that, and no Zune on any of the. I think you guys are going to deliver well, right? No Zune. We'll leave it at that. Because you just had a breathing class, Shane. I think just yesterday you were doing some good some intervals, some breathing intervals.
Look, all the things that we've been told, I'm like, this is like a Zwift session. So we need ice, we need cool towels. My partner's going to be in pain. They're going to need some breathing exercises. I'm going to have to be there to support them. I'm like, this is every week when Von races on Zwift. What's any different here? So no, we're ready for it.
You've been training.
Von may have a view on how different it is post the event. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, listen, Von's incipient happy news and yours too hasn't stopped you making at least one traditional summer European trip. You've been all over the shop in Europe, including at Le Tour. Very briefly, what did you learn, Shane?
Look, I'll cover the highlights because I've got a show reel here to go through. So we went to the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, Taiwan. We caught the Tour de France stages 1 and stages 2, the Giro Rossa stage 6, I believe, individual time trial. We caught up with 4 trainer manufacturers, power meter companies. We did the DCR open house event. We went to visit the world's largest bicycle manufacturer and had a Zwift event in Taiwan where I was signing bottles and taking selfies with some fans. It's time to sleep for a day or two and then get back into it. But it was busy. It was busy. Yeah.
That is some list. Well, no doubt keep an eye on your YouTube channel for all the super interesting stuff that you will have done and made, be making videos about. So good place to catch up with that. And we'll talk about what we might see at Eurobike before the end of this podcast. Nathan, one of the reasons that the three of us not been in our usual spots is because last episode of the Zwiftcast was a special with Zwift creator John Mayfield. He had loads of interesting things to say. But in particular, what did you make of his kind of obvious admiration for the driving game Forza Horizon?
There is a part of me, because I am a racer, and that was where I got involved in Zwift, and that is where like all of my Zwifting was about supporting my race career as a professional cyclist. And then what I did with Zwift afterwards was start all the race broadcasts and all that stuff. So there's another part of me that goes, I kind of want to hear you talk about Overwatch, not Forza, like, because Forza is up front. It was a race car level up solo campaign thing. At the same time, though, it is very much also like the original Forzas, though, did have like racetracks, and I do think it's a great comparison. I think it's a great fit when it comes to what Zwift is and has to offer right now, and how it's going to develop as it is right now.
Well, maybe I think. Yeah. I mean, I think what he kind of liked about was certain features within the game. There were things he felt that could be developed in a similar way for Zwift. I don't think it was a kind of blanket, let's make Zwift like Forza, but it was interesting to me.
I think it is definitely hand in glove there, though. I think it's a good fit. I'm not saying it's not at all. I think it's a great comparison. I think that he knows his game really well. And there's just a bias in me. That's all. I'm just talking about my bias. That's essentially what I'm doing. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're here, to air our biases. That's why we make podcasts. Okay, let's crack on with episode 66. Now, one phrase that we've heard more often even than Thomas de Gentis in the breakaway at this Tour de France is "fun is fast." The tagline for Zwift's blanket ad campaign. I say blanket, well, that's been for me watching the UK coverage on ITV4 and Eurosport. Zwift has been ever present with both sponsorship bumpers in and out of breaks and traditional 30-second spots. And I'm pretty sure Zwift has bought lots of airtime in its other major territories too. Shane, perhaps you could confirm that whilst you answer this question as well. I mean, to me, when I first saw this, it looked almost counterintuitive. I mean, the platform's very quiet. I've been doing a couple of Zwift sessions because it's so hot where I am at the moment. And the platform's very quiet. So, and it's certainly low season, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. But then I started thinking about it and asked myself, is it really counterintuitive? Well, probably not really, because if you care about cycling, Le Tour is everything. It's the best 3 weeks of my year, that's for sure. So this association for Zwift with the Tour looks like a smart move, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And here in Australia, we are bombarded with Zwift ads on television and Zwift sponsorships by the podcast with SBS and our national coverage and all that. I welcome it. I like seeing Zwift on telly. It sort of reminds me of how far things have come, because back 4 years ago when we were just testing this beta software and it was our little thing. Look, I think all competitive cyclists now know about Zwift. Whether they use it or not, it's up to them. And just like competitive cyclists know about like Paris-Roubaix and the Spring Classics and the World Championships, but those things you need to be in the cycling bubble to know about. Now, onto the Tour. The Tour is bigger than cycling. It may sound a little strange, but even non-cyclists watch the Tour and know what the Tour is. So the Tour is a bigger brand than Zwift. So, yep, the smart money is to associate upwards, Zwift, the Tour, and that's a lot more brand awareness.
Good phrase Shane used there, Nathan. I like seeing Zwift on telly. There's something actually, particularly for people like us and people who probably listen to the podcast and have been Zwifters for a long time, there's almost a sense of kind of pride, isn't there, in seeing your baby kind of grow up and do, mix with the big boys in the world of Le Tour.
Yeah. So as far as that goes, like there's a familial place, a family place on Thursdays during July's. Every Thursday night, grandma meal. And that's been going on for like 20 years. And this past Thursday and the Thursday before, we always watch during July stages of the Tour with grandpa sitting in the chair, and that we all gather on the telly and there's Zwift and they all look at me and go, Nathan. And that was and yes, there was definitely a sense of yeah, this is something I've been involved with for a really long time. And now it's on television. Whoa, this is, and they're all like, Nathan, that's what you do. You're a part of that thing. And so that was really cool to have that because not everyone there is cyclists. A lot of them are, grandpa, world triathlete level and my dad, etc. But there was a lot of cycling in the family, but not everyone is. And the ones who aren't are seeing that and recognizing. And that was really cool to see for all of us.
Well, I managed to grab a few words with the Zwift exec who masterminded this huge global campaign. Welcome to the Zwiftcaster, Laurent Jeannot, VP Brand and Communications at Zwift. Hi, Laurent.
Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. As listeners will have very quickly deduced, you are French. So the first question has to be, Laurent, are you enjoying the tour?
I am enjoying the tour. I am definitely enjoying the tour for a few reasons. The first one is there's a Frenchman in yellow, which doesn't happen that often.
Yes.
And Geraint Thomas, who's quite close to our brand, is doing fairly well too. And we have also our advertising campaign out during the Tour de France, which is absolutely fantastic for us.
Indeed. And that brings us straight to the matter at hand. If I had €5, Laurent, for every time I've heard the training app where fun is fast, whilst I've been watching the tour, I have to tell you, I'd be a very, very wealthy man. I mean, it's been blanket coverage, certainly in the UK. How does that compare with other countries?
Our media presence is very strong in the UK. It's very strong in continental Europe as well. It's very strong in the US. It's very strong in Australia and in New Zealand. So it's pretty much a global campaign.
So people in those territories will have seen just as much of the campaign as I have in the UK.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, as we just mentioned, for reasons that you will take particular pride in, I mean, it is an absolutely fantastic edition of Le Tour. And I'm assuming as a result of that, it's getting very high ratings, which is great news for your campaign. So any kind of early signs of success that you're able to measure for the campaign, Laurent?
We have some early signs that are very, very positive. I mean, our website traffic is absolutely through the roof. The search level, the Google search level, which is a very good proxy for brand awareness, is at a level that we usually experience during the winter, which is our acquisition season. And there's also a very clear increase in the number of subscription, including some record new account creation in Australia, where the acquisition season is in full swing. The campaign is being noticed, and we have tons of positive comments on social media, which is fantastic news to know that first the campaign is seen, the campaign is definitely leaving a mark, and it's making Zwifter proud, and it's making prospective Zwifter interested.
Yeah. And in that sense, that sort of foreshadows my next question, really, Ron, which is this campaign aimed at driving subscriptions, or is it more like supporting the brand? So associating Zwift with Le Tour de France, is that more like, is the aim there to make Zwift part of the cycling furniture by that association?
It's a great question. The objective of the campaign is really to support the brand, definitely. And so, yes, the main objective is basically to use the Tour de France, which is the moment where the attention of our core audience is at its peak, to increase the visibility and the awareness of Zwift. So really increase that level of visibility, that level of curiosity, so that when the acquisition season starts, there is a bed of awareness, there is a bed of knowledge about Zwift that we can reactivate, and that can make the acquisition season even more efficient than what it was, the past few years.
That makes a lot of sense. I can understand that. I don't think that's too deep in kind of media theory weeds for people to understand. So given that, Laurent, on a scale of 1 to 10, how annoyed are you at Peloton muscling in and advertising in the same break?
Not that annoyed, I have to say. At first it's understandable and great for Peloton. They're preparing for their IPO. The reason why we're not that annoyed by this is that we don't really see this as a challenge, as we're not really targeting the same audience, and we don't have exactly the same product. I mean, we're focused on real-time, community-driven, interactive experience, and their core business is about those recorded classes. Long answer to a short question, not annoyed at all.
Well, that's very gracious of you. The creative process, let's just talk about that a little. I mean, was it lengthy and or difficult? I mean, we see very high quality actual gameplay, and of course we see very prominently amongst others, but we do see very prominently Geraint Thomas. Were they easy decisions, Laurent?
Fairly easy, because when Lloyd Murphy, our creative director, and I saw this concept, it made total sense. We saw several other concepts. The reason why it made total sense is There are two main reasons. The first one is that we had never seen before a concept that would put our game in majesty at that level.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing it does is it gets across the concept of movement, which actually, if you know anything about TV production and Zwift, it's quite a difficult concept to get across that visually.
Completely, and for us as a brand, there's a super interesting tension or paradox is that we're a very innovative brand, and we're constantly moving forward. We're giving the impression for our subscribers that they're moving forward in our worlds. And at the same time, we're standing still, in a garage or in a spare room and in an office. So communicating that idea of movement, that notion of speed, is super interesting. And you may not like it or it may make you even richer if you get €5 each time you hear "fun is fast," but you will probably see more of it in the future.
Well, the problem is I'm not getting €5 every time I hear it. But just on the use of Geraint, I mean, clearly he's a huge star. I mean, clearly he could still win the Tour. But to be honest, Laurent, he's not known as a huge Zwifter. I mean, I know he has Zwifted, and I think anybody could absolutely understand the reason why you would make him the central figure and cast him in the role that you have in the campaign. But were there any concerns about authenticity at all?
It's been a principle that we've been trying to respect for the past few campaigns, is really to use Zwifters in our ads. And if Geraint had not been a Zwifter at all, we would, or not interested at all in Zwift, we would have not, considered having him in the campaign. And the reason why we're having him in the campaign is not only because of his notoriety and the fact that he's a very famous pro rider, winner of the 2018 Tour de France and many other trophies, but also because he's interested in Zwift and because he's Zwifting and he's going to Zwift even more in the future.
Sure. So I think the answer to that question is Geraint is enough of a Zwifter to pass the test. I think we'll let you have that one. Final question, Laurent, probably the one you've been dreading because you may have to find creative ways not to answer it, which is what I think is probably going to happen. This campaign looks as though it's cost a pretty penny or a few cents or a couple of dozen euro. I mean, I'll ask you the direct question. How much have you spent on it?
That's one of our little secrets that we'll keep a little secret. If you don't mind, I mean, what I can say, it's a beautiful representation of our brand, and it's a very, very worthwhile investment when we see, the amount of attention we draw.
I thought that might be the case. Cost and value, of course, are two different things. I think we have to appreciate. Very final question. We are about to go into 3 very, very decisive days in the Alps. Laurent, stake your reputation. Will a Frenchman win the Tour?
Oh my God! I don't think I'm enough of a connoisseur in cycling to really make a safe bet. And I'm very torn.
But you're a Frenchman. I
know. I'm very torn, Simon, because I'd love a Frenchman to be in yellow on the Champs-Élysées, for sure.
But maybe also Geraint, who's
exactly. I'd love Geraint to have this second Tour de France in a row, which would be awesome for him and absolutely great for us. So I don't know. I can't really answer. It's really, I'm deeply torn. It's deep inside, so I don't know yet. I can't answer precisely this question.
I think you're sitting on the fence. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for giving us a real insight into that campaign, which I think Zwifters have watched with great interest. Thank you very much indeed, Laurent. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Simon. It was great talking to you.
Some interesting points there, Shane. I mean, the Geraint Thomas is a really interesting call, isn't it? You can absolutely understand why he is cast in the role that he is in this global campaign. I mean, you want the biggest possible star that you can get. And, that might be Peter Sagan. But, Geraint Thomas is not a bad second. But I did ask Laurent the kind of authenticity question. I think he does just about pass the test. Do you?
Yeah, look, I've done the numbers because when you get a technical person on the show like me, I do the numbers. Geraint Thomas has had 7 rides total on Zwift of 220 kilometers and 6 hours of use. Last activity was back in 2017. So when you say pass the test, he just scrapes in the time limits. Look, as opposed to somebody else like Andre Greipel, who has lots of rides, 3,000 Ks, and last activity was a few weeks prior to the tour, and Lawrence Tendam, 3,600 Ks on Zwift. So look, let's call this what it is. It's marketing. Geraint is an English-speaking Brit. He's likely to win the tour at this point in time anyway. Well, let's see how he goes tonight. And look, by all reports, he's a good character. So it's a very good bet for Zwift to roll the dice on this one, and that's exactly what they did.
It's difficult to call them out on that being a bad decision, I think. And it was interesting that Laurent said during that interview that there are, I can't remember whether I included it in the edit because it was a long interview, but he did say there were plans for Zwift to be Geraint to become more involved with Zwift. So I wonder even if part of this deal, which I imagine was substantial, could see some future course for a closer association with Zwift and Geraint. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, we don't see any lacking. And I mean, from right up front, we saw the pro use attached to marketing, right? From day one almost, I believe. So anytime that there are pros on, I think that, that's a great association. In the same vein that Laurent was talking about the association of the brand, I think it's just smart to grow the brand with people who are winners. It's a great way to go. So yeah, I think the way that it looks to me is that Geraint most likely will get more involved, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, hard to see how it's a bad thing, it must be said. Shane, I don't know if this is happening in Australia, but it's certainly happening in the UK, possibly because Peloton have just launched in the UK here. But cheek by jowl in some ad breaks with the Zwift 30-second spot is a Peloton spot, which is it's kind of hilarious, really. I mean, it shows you a couple of things. One that, this is a viciously competitive arena now for advertising for brands who want to be associated with cycling and in particular the Tour. But it also just shows you the popularity of indoor cycling. Or maybe, as Laurent said during that interview, it also shows you that Peloton are just about to go for an IPO.
Interesting. No Peloton stuff here, which is good because that's the last thing I'd want to see on our televisions here in Australia. But they have just launched in the UK, I think a few months back, so it makes sense there. But look, they're playing for the same real estate. They really are. It's the competitive enthusiast person who wants to spin their legs. If somebody is sitting on anything, spinning their legs indoors, they're a competitor for Zwift, and there's a potential market there. And I think there's a lot of room to move for Zwift because, as we've been talking about forever, it's kind of hard to get on Zwift with these smart trainers and hooking everything up. And Peloton, you can pull it out of the box and it just works. So, interesting. But hey, as long as there are more players in the space, the better. More competition, yep, bring it on.
Yeah. Well, for me, the message was, 4 years ago in the Tour, nobody would have even mentioned indoor cycling around it. And now you've got two competing brands, no doubt, driving the price of those ad spots up for each other as well. Nathan, the Julian Alaphilippe of Zwift, as I think we're going to have to start calling you, because you've been winning races on Zwift, mate. 3 in 3 days, I hear. Have you been inspired by the French sensation?
Well, it was inspiring seeing him taking on the climbs, that's for sure. And I've always liked Julian Alaphilippe because he's a puncher, and I like that because I'm a mountain biker and most mountain bikers are punchers. I mean, but I don't know, like when I jump on Zwift lately, I'm either doing a recovery ride or I'm racing. I'm just like, I feel like I don't want to go out and suffer in intervals. I know that's what it takes to race if I really want to get serious about racing like professionally again. But I just kind of want to stay in shape, and racing's an easy way to get like a 700 to 800 calorie burn with warm up and cool down, maybe 1K, so I'm just kind of like, well, this will at least keep me fresh. It's interesting. I'm seeing fitness come around in ways that I wasn't expecting without doing the base as much. Now, if I do want to see like go compete with the guys doing the classics and stuff, like that's a whole nother level of insanity, 5-hour rides at 250 watts or whatever. But it's a nice way to just jump on, and I'm seeing the benefits that of, some of the early Zwiftcasts, we had conversations with people who just raced and saw what kind of There are actually people who did tests just to see like, hey, what kind of fitness can I get out of just racing? And I'm seeing the benefit of that and I'm enjoying it. And it's a very exciting way to get a workout in. So,
well, it's interesting. You say you're either doing recovery rides or racing your bum off, because I mean, that's kind of how the pros train. I mean, they don't train in this mushy middle. They either go really easy for a long time or really hard for not quite such a long time. And, maybe that is the way to go. My progress is stately. My return to fitness progress is stately, I think. Certainly not dramatic. Certainly not anything of the juju variety. But since all my horrid health issues, I have to say, out on the bike the other day, for the very first time, I just started to feel as though I was getting on top of the ride instead of the ride was getting on top of me. I just felt for that first time there was a bit of strength coming back to the legs, which was very, very welcome.
Or you're scoring some PRs? How many KOMs? Obviously, you're uploading all this to Strava. You've got to keep track of this.
I don't really do KOMs.
Oh, come on.
The nearest I get to KOMs is kind of suicidal descents. You're never going to find me. You're never going to find me topping the list of anything involving a climb, I have to say. But yeah, it's nice to feel some fitness coming back.
Right on.
Okay, well, before we get onto a review of The Fence with top Zwift ride leader Tim Searle, let's round up on a few bits and pieces of industry news and moves, because there's quite a lot about, actually. Zwift is now officially on Android, out of beta, officially available. It's a thing. I confess to knowing little of Android, but I do know that an awful lot of people use it. Shane, is this really a big deal? Are the millions and millions of people who've previously been prevented from being Zwifters by their use of the Android OS?
Android? What's Android?
No, we must be rude about it. We'll get letters.
No.
An angry email.
It's all good. It's interaction with the content. It helps the algorithm. But look, we saw this first at Eurobike 2 years ago, and I predicted back then it's only a small subset of users. We do see most people in the fitness market tend to lean towards the iOS-based devices, so iPhones, Apple TVs, and iPads and things like that. But look, I think what I predicted has come true. It'll come out. The support of running it across devices will be a problem, and it is. But it's good to have in their back pocket, I guess.
But do you think there's a massive pent-up demand there?
No, absolutely not. But I think it has potential to be much more value to Zwift because it runs on what could be cheaper and more accessible hardware. And I do believe Peloton runs on Android-based screens for their solution.
Interesting. Well, I guess it's got to be a good thing that it's available on a platform that millions and millions of people use. So we'll see. Well, we won't know what it does to subscribers, but we'll get a sense of whether there's lots of Android users flooding onto the platform, I guess, in due course. Nathan, even though we've not heard or been told anything completely officially, our friend Jonathan Levy over at Zwift Hype seems convinced we're about to see, I think, what we're calling the forest section of the newest extension to Watopia, which was a desert section. There was a forest section in there. We knew about it. We think it's about to be freed from captivity. More roads, looks to be rolling. Lots of big redwood trees and stuff. Looking forward to that.
First, I'm looking forward to saying Levi like the jeans, because I was corrected over and over and over again for like a year, I think it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, no joke. He was, because they were involved in a lot of the early broadcasts. So I used to say levee, and I even compared it to like a levee, like a dam that breaks with water. Yeah. Anyways,
so it's not take your Chevy to the levee.
When the levee breaks is what I think of. Led Zeppelin.
Don't mention water breaks around here. I'll get nervous.
Oh my gosh. There we go. Oh man. We're not getting the opposite of Zune now. Okay. So this actually is one of the releases I'm the most excited about because of what the terrain I believe is going to look like and feel like, as well as maybe some other things that I always do this to you guys on the Zwiftcast that are gonna maybe down the road come. And so this is a part of Watopia that I'm really, really looking forward to. I don't think we've seen terrain like this anywhere in Zwift actually ever before. And I think it's going to be super interactive. this is and the fact that it's like right off of the main piers in Watopia and in very quick access, I just feel like the jungle doesn't get as much use because it's kind of farther away. And the fact that it's like right there kind of will bring more traffic there maybe too. I'm excited about this. I'm extremely excited about this forest section that's on its way.
Well, the few little hints we've been given, the word discovery is prominent. Now, what that means, I've absolutely no idea, but a journey of discovery, we've been told when you enter the forest section. So that does sound interesting.
Is it a hat tip to Lance Armstrong?
No, don't go postal on Machine. Don't go postal. Okay, well, listen, talking about new courses, I think actually, even though, we're not supposed to say this, I think we can probably acknowledge on the podcast that if all things are equal, and I've no reason to think that they aren't, sometime before September, we're going to see a new World Championships course. I mean, every World Champs in the last couple of years has had a Zwift course. So, I mean, this is hardly great insight. I mean, we've had Richmond and Innsbruck. It's nailed on. We're going to get Yorkshire. Probably a few weeks before the IRL Worlds, which are towards the end of September. So maybe beginning of September-ish might not be a bad guess. Particularly exciting for me, of course, because these are my home roads. I mean, these are the roads I literally ride my bike on, all around Harrogate and North Leeds and points in Yorkshire. The HQ for the Worlds is, in fact, my hometown, so very, very exciting one for me. For those Zwifters unfamiliar with Yorkshire's tarmac, let me let you into a little secret. They don't make the roads flat in Yorkshire. More roads soon then, Shane, I think is a fair bet. I know in the past you've thought Zwift's policy of replicating the world's courses has looked a little niche on the basis that the Worlds is not the Tour and, only kind of very committed and enthusiastic and informed cyclists really follow the Worlds. Do you still feel that? I actually like Innsbruck these days.
Yeah, I like the opportunity to be able to select Innsbruck, yes or no, or go back to Watopia. And a lot of people are still going back to Watopia. I've been looking at the numbers. But my question is, Yorkshire roads, they don't build them flat, but do they build them interesting? Because in Richmond, they didn't build roads flat, but they weren't really that interesting.
Well, I find the Yorkshire roads interesting. Yeah, I mean, and yes, I mean the scenery that that the Worlds is set in is utterly spectacular. I mean, it's some of the best, best natural landscapes in the world, and I don't say that just as Yorkshire pride thing. I mean, it really, really is.
Is there any particular climbs or features that we may see on? Is it the finishing loop? I guess they'll be looking at because that's what they've done for the Innsbruck thing.
Yeah, well, Yorkshire's full of climbs. I mean, and the thing is, I know the World's routes, but I don't yet know, of course, the section of the World's routes that Zwift has chosen. But I mean, there are some walls. There's some 25% monsters in Yorkshire. You don't have to go far to find some of those. But some nice rolling territory as well. So it's going to be good to see how they interpret. I mean, there's hundreds of miles of routes or kilometres of routes that the IRLs are going to go on. So it'd be interesting to see which bits of those that they pick. I'm not going to be the best critic of this because I just kind of know it too well. Nathan, exciting. I think, more tarmac, always exciting.
Yeah, it would be good to have options, like always, and I do believe it's also a brand play, like we see with the Tour, on a different level. But I think it's also a sports play. I think that there's a side to it where it's like train on the same thing as the World's course. So there's that part of it. Of course,
it's also. I'm just going to jump in here. It's also a lobby play. I mean, Zwift are friends with the UCI, and it's great to be friends with the UCI.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of chatter around that. Sport, like I said, a sports play. I guess that's what I was getting at there. Is that being in a sport, being in the genre, and being associated with the genre of cycling. Obviously, I mean, as a cycling platform, and we want to have this esport thing. I mean, that's a whole. So it's almost like we have to have the course, or in at least some sort of associations like that, especially the World Championship of Cycling. So. yeah, I think it's a great thing. And I think it's also great for Zwifters to have new tarmac. So a yearly course is awesome, and we can look forward to it then and make plans around it too, which I think is something pretty cool. If we get earlier release information and be able to make plans around it for doing events and stuff like that.
Well, it's one of the few course releases that's actually tied to a date. And if you look where Eurobike is coming this year, it's 2 to 3 weeks before the Worlds, which, might be a good time to release. Who knows? But that's pure speculation. Shane, back to you, not directly Zwift related, but for sure indoor cycling related. And for sure it would have been noted with interest at ZHQ. Wahoo has acquired the Sufferfest. I mean, I know this is old news now, but we've not talked about it. I must say the immediate kind of drop-dead stone-cold logic of this deal sort of escaped me, actually. So I'm relying on you. What does it mean, and who's going to benefit from this?
Yeah, I think this completes their ecosystem over at Wahoo a little more. They've got trainers, heart rate monitors, fans, desks, mats, the climb that goes up and down. Yeah. And that needs to be all tied together somehow. And there is now a reliance on Zwift. Well, on the surface, that's cool. But yeah, who knows at a business level what's happening here. So it gives Wahoo a more out-of-the-box appeal. Let's say they include 12 months of Sufferfest in every trainer box, then boom, lots more appeal there. But look, that's what we know today, and we live on the surface of information. So the acquisition could mean a lot more soon.
Yeah, they might know stuff that we don't. But the immediate kind of logic of it, other than, as you say, dropping that kind of final piece into the jigsaw, I didn't quite see it. Whereas I did immediately with the Tax Garmin tie-up. That just like made all sorts of sense. This one, I'm sure it does make sense, but it's just a bit more opaque, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people expected TrainerRoad, because when you look at the numbers, there's a lot of Zwifters. TrainerRoad, Sufferfest is probably third, maybe fourth on the list. But again, that also makes them ripe for the picking. So yeah, I think we'll know more about that in the future.
Yeah. Speaking of TrainerRoad, TrainerRoad is now more expensive than Zwift. Shock. Which is quite a shock, actually, because, I mean, and whenever I say anything that's vaguely negative about TrainerRoad or even neutral about TrainerRoad on the Zwiftcast, I get lots of angry comments in Zwiftcast listeners. TrainerRoad is a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking TrainerRoad. It's got a fantastic workout library and it's got lots of blue graphs, but it's now more expensive than Zwift. Does that look like a good value proposition as a consumer, Nathan, do you think?
I was really surprised at this price increase. Like, I kind of scratched my head like, what's TrainerRoad again? I mean, I used TrainerRoad like a long time ago. So I think I was using TrainerRoad as an overlay for when I was Zwifting to show more things. Or no, I was using it when I was playing other games and I wasn't even Zwifting yet. And TrainerRoad was what I was using to show my heart rate and my power so that people could see that I was actually riding a bike while playing Dota. And they were like, and so it was like the thing I was using for info. But I just always made my own workouts, and I was kind of a bread and butter guy when it comes to intervals. So like, well, 20s are we're going to do it, and I need good 5-minute power, and I don't need a super interesting workout to entertain me. I just need to do the work if I need to do the work. And so I just don't see the value play. I honestly don't. I don't understand what value there is because I write my own workouts, and it's not that hard to figure out peak powers and aim at them. And what you need to see data, my Garmin does that. I'll pay $150 up front and I can take it outside. I can't take TrainerRoad outside. So what's it there for?
Don't be rotten to TrainerRoad, because I'll get lots of angry comments. I mean,
I just don't see it. I don't personally see it.
People who like it. I think what we're trying to discuss here is, this is a thumping price increase, makes it more expensive than Zwift. Just doesn't make sense to me, Shane.
I'll go into bat for TrainerRoad because I know the guys quite well. Look, but first of all, this is their second price increase in under 12 months. That's like what I've equated to having a double puncture on a ride. The first one's like, oh, damn. The second one is like, this is not my day. So I think TrainerRoad uses it a little bit, this is not my year. They do have a grandfathering price policy, though. So whatever pay rate you're on for, say, the 12-month sub, and as long as you've got an active account, it stays that rate forever. They're forever grandfathering. Whether you agree with that or not, from a business side of things, I don't know. From a consumer side, it's kind kind of handy. There's still people on, I think, $99 a year, but this did bump up to $129 a year. Now it's up to $189 a year. They have done a little bit of backpedaling today and are offering people a week to adjust to this new plan if they want to lock in 12 months now at the current price, because it was announced on the website just silently. In regards to the value, they have changed a lot in the last 12 months. They've come out with, there's now fitness tracking, so you can track your CTL, TSS, TSB, etc. So your fitness over time, which is very important if you want to track your fitness, obviously, something that Zwift doesn't have yet. They've also got calendaring, so you can schedule in rides. And now they've also got TrainerRoad. And what Nathan said, and I will refer to this, they do have TrainerRoad outside now. So you can have your rides scheduled or your plans scheduled, and it goes to your Garmin head unit, soon to be Wahoo as well. And you can take your rides or efforts and do them outside and just follow the plan. It's not erg mode, obviously, until you find a good hill, and then get that done. So there's a lot more value added there, which I think may be lost, I guess, in a lot of people who just think, okay, TrainerRoad was that, because that's what I knew it was 3 or 4 years ago. But the TrainerRoad today was a little different, and I think that's their justification. It's becoming... I guess there's also more competition in the marketplace to win users as well. So they're going to have to keep adding, whether existing users like it or not. That's adding value and also adding the pricing. So we've seen it across the board. We've seen recently Sufferfest increase their prices as well.
Can I backpedal just a little?
Everyone's backpedaling. Let's go.
Just a little. Just a little. And just to say, you're talking to a coach, and essentially you're paying for a software that will coach you. And so, like, I'm not a good person to talk to about the value, because I'm competing with TrainerRoad, right? Like, as a coach, I'm in the market going, what do you need them for? Use me. You know what I mean? So, like, so I'm not the right person to talk to about it necessarily, because really, if you pay $189 for a year, that's a lot cheaper than me. So I will say, if you don't want to coach, it's a good value. So,
well, it's horses for courses, isn't it? It is, but like Shane says, 2 price rises in a year,
double puncture. Yep.
Okay, it's only for new, a double puncture. Absolutely, it's only for new subscribers. We should also make that clear. But you do wonder if this is a company being fattened up to be sold off. Maybe, who knows? Interesting one. Okay, finally on kind of moves and news, one of the real minnows, well, I see it as a minnow anyway, of the indoor cycling world, Ruvi, has acquired a British company which has got a big library of real-life video of UK courses and also some special motorbike-mounted equipment for capturing really smooth, high-quality vid of real-life courses. And this is Ruvi. It's augmented reality, isn't it, Shane? So you get an animated figure within, or animated figures within real life landscapes. I mean, whenever I've looked at it, it's just always looked hideously buggy to me. Is it
look, augmented reality is their unique value prop at this point. So you've got your 3D generated avatar riding real roads, but like a lot of other, I guess what I call Zwift clones or non-Zwift platforms, you look kind of awkward on a bike. And that's one thing we've spoken about before. From day zero, Zwift got it right. You look good on a bike. Even if indoors, you look pretty terrible on a bike with one knee swaying out to the side, or, your left-right balance is a bit off. At least on Zwift, you look good. But in regard to Cycle Recon, look, I live and breathe this stuff, and I have never heard of them. They are very small. I am familiar with Ruvi, though. We met with the team over at a Saris event in Italy 2 weeks ago, because their Saris/Cyclops used to be an owner or partner of Ruvi when it was known as Virtual Training. So again, they do have a value prop, which is the augmented reality. That does have potential if you could upload your own rides and ride your own routes and then race people virtually on those. But there's a lot of computation that goes behind the scenes to making a 2-dimensional flat video into a 3D world.
Actually, you've just reminded me. It's not on our running order, but we really ought to discuss this. Actually, one of the other things that came out of the John Mayfield interview, talking about how good you look on a bike in Zwift. I mean, John did say that there's a pretty wholesale review going on, and redesign basically of the UI. Lord alone knows what it's going to look like, but I got the impression it was that there's going to be quite a big change to the UI of Zwift. I guess, Nathan, you think that might be overdue?
Oh yeah, and I think one of the main criticisms that you hear a lot of times is that, like, customization or just like simple, like go here, do this, go here, do that. Like here's a mission that you can do. And it's all being kind of like really upfront and simple and quick click throughs and things like, it does feel like it's been long overdue. And I think that's also Zwift's own words too, that like we know, and I know that there was hirings that went on specifically around UI, that they were out there looking for this for a long time, and some awesome individuals got put in, and there's been a lot of work, it looks like to me, being put into this. And so I'm excited for it. I think we're going to get a whole new look to Zwift, and it'll be fresh. I think actually the UI changes will be more exciting than new tarmac, personally.
It is, yeah, no, it is interesting actually, because it will be the first big change to how Zwift looks ever. I know what you're going to say, Shane. If I ask you what you want to see change most, let me see if I'm right. You want text not to appear in the middle of the screen. Right or wrong?
Well, customizable so we can have it at the bottom, the lower third, like watching a movie.
But what would you like to see from the UI? I mean, John himself, actually. I mean, the time before last when I talked to him, I think I used this phrase that some people had described the UI as a bit Fisher Price, and he actually looked physically wounded when I said that to him the time before last. This time, he actually said it himself. I think he's been on a bit of a journey where he does accept that, you know, the kind of Fisher Price thing may be uncomfortably close to the truth, and it really is time for a fresh look.
It's going to be hard to get it seamless across all platforms. And by what I mean by that is you go to the hardest platform first to integrate or interface with Zwift, and that'll be the Apple TV remote. How can they get something very complex to work with that?
God, I hate that Apple TV remote.
So do they then pass a lot of that off, or a lot of configuration off onto the mobile app, such as clearing the screen of all your data or screen customization within the companion app? I think there's a lot of room to move there with the companion app. It has been accepted very well. Everyone has a mobile phone, maybe even an Android phone to use in companion with Zwift. So maybe offloading something to that. But the trick is going to be making it easy, because what we're getting is quite complex. Things like the Tax Neo road feel only pops up when you've got a Tax Neo trainer. Yeah. And other certain things only pop up when you've got certain trainers. Erg mode only pops up when you've got a controllable trainer. The list of trainers is getting longer and longer on the screens. It's just, and the pairing screen, how do you make that seamless? It's going to be a big, tough ask. But I'm sure they've got the right people on board, and I'm keen to see it.
No, but you're talking detail now. We just want something prettier. We don't care about how hard it is. We just want something that looks a bit prettier.
I gotta say though, as a PC user that gets this in cross-platforming in all video games, the Xbox can get it done when you're using thumb controller. And I wouldn't, if a game told me, like if Apex Legends told me your PC experience is going to be worse because Xbox, I'd be like, what? No, wait a second. Make it as good as it possibly can be on this platform, and then deal with that other platform. Now, at the same, like how many users in an Apple TV? I guess you got to go to the user base and all that. I hear this sometimes in some of the conversations, and I'm like, can we just make it as good as it can be, please? Like, let's not hold it back. Like that whole idea of holding it back because of some cross-platforming. I'm like, okay, we'll get it as good as it can be on that other platform, but make it as awesome as it can be on all platforms. So that's my point there. I really would like it to see as best as it can be on each platform and held back where it needs to be for Apple TV or whatever else you need to put it on.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's a big change, that one coming. It really is a big change, big visible change, and people will, I mean, often lots of changes are done under the hood and it kind of improves the user experience incrementally. But when you get a UI change, it's a really big dramatic change. So I think that's going to be quite significant. I didn't dare ask John when, but I would have thought maybe this winter would maybe not be off the cards. Who knows? Okay, well, let's catch up with how another eagerly awaited Zwift feature, namely the fence, is working out. For those of you who don't know, the fence is a flyer prevention device, a big red barrier in-game that stops people piling off the front of group rides. There could be no one better to discuss this than the estimable Tim Searle, one of the best and most experienced ride leaders anywhere in the known universe. So I dialed him up at ADR HQ, close to Brisbane, Australia, and asked him for his thoughts. Well, welcome to the Zwiftcaster, Tim Searle. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Simon. How are you? Long time.
It is a long time, isn't it? I'm very well indeed. Thanks, mate. So let's talk about the fence. In a few words, helicopter view, how's it working for you as Mr. King Ride Leader?
It's I think it's very, very promising. It's great to finally have a tool available to ride leaders to help us keep larger groups together. I think it's been a positive start. Yes.
Is it killing flyers? I mean, have flyers ceased to exist?
Well, I think so on our rides. I mean, for me, it's never been about killing flyers. It's been about protecting the rear guys at the group, the battlers at the back of the group. The fact that we can control those guys on the front means that the rear is no longer under a great pressure, so they last a lot longer. I'm getting a lot of great feedback from people who were previously really struggling on the back of the group. Then they can now do the whole ride, which is it's excellent feedback.
Well, I mean, I guess that's job done then in that case, really, because the idea of the fence was to enable ride leaders to have more power in marshalling and keeping groups together. And in that respect, you'd give it how many marks out of 10?
I'd give it a good 7 out of 10. I mean, like anything, there's nuances to it, and it's got to be used in the right way. Shane Miller did one of our first test rides, and he immediately picked the fact that a lot of people were using the fences motor pacing. So you get a lot of people that want to ride right up on the fence. You can have a group of people around the leader doing the right thing and a group right up on the new shiny fence. And that means there's a split in the group, and no matter what the ride leader does, because the fence is always set 10 seconds ahead, the groups never come together, and that can be a bit problematic. I think in time, people they'll get over riding on the fence. I mean, it must be really annoying to continually get alerts and pop-ups saying please drop back and things like that. So I think once it wears off a bit, things will settle down.
Yeah. You gave it 7 out of 10, Tim. What would you like HQ to do to improve it? I mean, have you got any kind of practical ideas as to for feedback to them, which I'm sure you've given them?
I think I know it's there to be seen, but I think it's just, we've got this really pretty courses and everything, and there's this big red thing in front of you. I think that can be improved in a couple of ways. I'm not sure on its current visual setting, but I know once you get a certain distance back from it, it disappears, which is good. Most ride leaders like myself, the default settings, the 5 seconds seems on flat courses, which is where most large group rides operate. 5 seconds is about the sort of sweet spot, and it's one of the default settings of the fence that we get. And at that, when I'm sitting at 5 seconds, I can still always see it. So I think it disappears at maybe 6 or 7 seconds. I think it might be beneficial just to drop that down to 3 or 4, so it's not just there in your face all the time. Taking that a step further, I'm not even sure that it needs to be a big red archway the whole time. I'm thinking maybe just a red line, just on the ground in front of you might be enough. I think once people get used to the fact that it's there, that will be enough for people, and it's not visually obtrusive then.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. I mean, at the moment, it is a big red barrier, and it could perhaps be a bit more subtle. Have you noticed any other kind of odd behaviour as a result of the fence? I mean, you talk about people riding up to it and treating it as a motor pace. I mean, that's just cyclists for you, isn't it? That's what cyclists do.
Exactly.
I've heard of death by fence, which is when somebody actually wants to leave the ride. They deliberately breach the fence. I mean, the problem is I could see that stretching a group.
Not really, because once they're gone, and everything sort of settles down pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I've seen it, and it's only it's a minute, and once they've gone past the minute, they're out anyways, because everybody knows that it's a minute. We do see pretty regularly, right at the end of rides, as soon as it clicks over to 59 seconds to go, they're all off, and everybody just, oh well, we can't get booted anyway. So the last 59 seconds of any group ride at the moment is a bit of a write-off, but that's fun. I don't mind that.
Yeah, it's only a minute. Oh, cyclists, honestly, what are they like? Yeah. But, it sounds to me as though this is achieving most, if maybe not all, of what it set out to do, which is to help ride leaders control large packs and large groups and keep them together.
Definitely, I think it's definitely working. It's just like everything on Zwift; it just throws up different things, and that's why it's great for us to be testing it. If it's just getting used to it, and I'm finding that I'm pretty used to it already, and I think it works.
Good. Well, your endorsement, my friend, carries a very significant amount of weight because if there's one rider leader who knows what he's doing, I think it's Mr. Tim Searle. And thanks very much for everything you do for the community and for giving the fence a great stress test and for giving us this progress report on it. Always great to talk to you, Tim. Thanks a lot, fella.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers.
Lads, I don't think actually that Tim has left us much room to mop up on that one. Actually, I mean, it works, doesn't it? The fence, I think it works, but it's a bit ugly. Was what Tim was saying. I mean, that this thing of death by fence and people playing with it and using it for motor pacing, he didn't seem to think that was a huge problem. Shane, would you share his views there?
Yeah, look, I was up early at 5 a.m. one morning. Now, I'd never get up early, but I was up early to test the fence out because I wanted to see what it was all about with one of the AHDR Bacon early morning rolls. So I jumped on, and the first thing everyone did is, they nudged up to the fence. They nudged up. They went across, they went back, and they went across. We had heaps of fun with it. It was, again, it's all about bringing a new experience to Zwift, and there were heaps of people having heaps of fun. I really liked it. And then I thought, I'm sort of looking back at the psychology of the group and how it was, bulging around the fence, not back to Tim. They were at the fence, and then Tim would push the fence out. Everyone cycles up to the fence as if it was a motor pacing bot. So I think this would be a really good test in seeing how they could probably do better group rides or group management with maybe a motor pacing something rather than the fence of death. I think it's cool. And I think it does serve a purpose of those flyers in events that do go beyond the ride and negatively impact the experience for others. And I'm strong on this point, is that this is something new to indoor cycling that before we used to jump on and train and no one else was involved, whereas now somebody in one country can affect the experience of another because they've pulled another bunch off and split the gaps and done all that. But I think it's cool. I really do. But I think it's being used in different ways.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly looks like it's working, Nathan. I mean, there's some tweaks to do. I think Tim gave it 7 out of 10, which I thought, based on everything else he said, was a little ungenerous, actually. It felt more like a kind of 8.5 to me. But and that the kind of bigness and redness of it was perhaps a little crude. Maybe that'll be changed in the UI review. But in general, it looks as though it's working. Have you had much experience with it?
I actually haven't done a ride with a fence. I just race and don't do these group ride things.
Oh, I'm just a racer now. I'm just a racer. I don't soil my hands with any kind of any of your ordinary riding.
I mean, I'm the guy who messes up everything, and I need the fence in my life. So, I'm the guy that gets yelled at the local group ride. What I thought was entertaining to me is that we have this fence thing to entertain the guy yelling at me at the local group ride. But online, he gets something he can't get in real life, so he should go ride Zwift now because he can yell at people and actually get a consequence to the guy who's taking off the front. Where in real life, he just could go back to the bar and yell about Nathan. So, no. So, anyways,
you're obviously not the best person to listen an opinion on about the fence.
I like the fence. I do. I like the fence. It's cool. The interactions with it, like Shane said, are interesting and kind of fun to see how people are interacting with it. And I think I've had Nicola Cramner on from ShowAir 2020, and they have a Thursday morning group ride, and they're starting to introduce the fence to their group ride. And it's interesting to see how it changes the whole group ride. And it kind of does its purpose, it seems like, because everyone starts chatting more, it sounds like, and interacting more rather than focused on this other thing of is it all staying together? It kind of just forced that's a no-brainer. Yeah. We don't have to talk about that. Yeah. And now it becomes more social. We don't have
to waste time and effort shouting at people.
Exactly.
We can just talk to each other. We can just talk to each other.
So that becomes a focus, and that's out of mind then. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I look forward to the day when I'm strong enough to be able to test the fence, because at the moment it'd be stopping me falling off the back. But things are looking up in that direction. Okay, well, once Le Tour finishes, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed the Tour this year, fellas. I mean, I know by the time most people listen to this podcast, it'll be over. But as we record, it's the last 2 stages, 3 brutal stages in the Alps coming up. I've absolutely loved the Tour this year. I just think it's been fantastic. But anyway, once the Tour finishes and the August silly season is done and dusted, September will be upon us. And this year, the organisers of Eurobike, the world's biggest bike show, have made the very sensible decision to place their event back in that month, away from the Tour, where they were rather stupid to put it last year, I thought. Traditionally, we've seen a number of big announcements at Eurobike that are of significant interest to those cyclists who now traditionally do many of their winter miles indoors. And traditionally, right about now, Shane, we speculate on what we might see and hear in Germany in the giant airship hangars that house Eurobike. So let's get at it, my friend. And I know I'm testing your fence here because you know more than you can say. So I won't push you, and whatever you can say, you will, and whatever you can't say, you won't. But let's start with who's jumped the gun, and that's Elite, who've already announced a new trainer, the Sweeto. In Elite's time-honoured fashion, it's written in a way that makes it hard to pronounce for people who may not speak any of the European languages, like French or Italian, but it's not quite as bad as some of the others, but Sweeto it is. No massively exciting features, I don't think. I mean, this one is absolutely all about price, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the new trend will be to jump the gun or go beyond that Eurobike release fence, because everything gets lost, forest from the tree sort of thing. So this is one of the first ones, the Sweeto from Elite. And yes, it's all about price. So looking at US $7.99, comes with a cassette fully assembled in the box, and it's a pretty small box. I've seen one of these in the flesh, and it's quite small. So it's ready to ride, ready to use. From a technology and a ride experience, it's not anything that stands out, though. It's all about the dropping of prices and the smaller form factor. And I think what Elite are trying to do is position themselves in the marketplace where they put themselves with the Diretto 2 years ago. They nailed that strategy. They came in with the first mid-range trainer. So I think they're looking to repeat that success. So we'll see how they go.
Yeah, and all the others will no doubt chase them. Does look like a jerry can, though, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No, I think I've got to find a jerry can for the review video. I'll do. We always have fun with the Elite names.
Zwift, I don't know if we'll say anything else new from Elite at Eurobike. Who knows? I think they may have shot their bolts already. But Zwift, of course, will be there. And I understand that their display space, I'm not going to call it a booth because it just doesn't do justice to to some booth. I mean, it's going to be giant, bigger and better than ever, I think. But traditionally, we don't see too many big announcements from the big Z at Eurobike, do we, Shane? But maybe referencing the conversation of a few moments ago, we might maybe see a course. Maybe.
Well, if there's 4 weeks out from the Worlds, that must be around about that time. But we never see, I don't think, anything majorly large at Eurobike because Zwift is global. Zwift is absolutely everywhere, and it's the off season for Zwift in the Northern Hemisphere. So I don't think we'll see anything major there, but you're right. The speculation there of is it the Yorkshire Worlds course? That'd be kind of cool. That would work. That'd get a few eyes on what's going on. But I think it's also about Zwift showcasing the integration of technologies and all these new trainers with their platform. People going through a bit of eye candy, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of there's a bit of humble bragging goes on at Eurobike, isn't there? I mean, if you're doing really well, you've got a lovely smart booth, and I think there'll be a bit of Zwift humble bragging going on there, actually. Maybe not so humble bragging. Let's move on to where the action might be then. And I think I'd leave Germany a little bit disappointed if I didn't hear 2 things from Tax Garmin. One, a release date for the Neo Smart Bike that was announced, previewed and promised for last year at Eurobike 2018. So good to hear something about that. And secondly, some kind of intel on what the Garmin acquisition of Tax may actually mean. Do you think my expectations are too high there, Shane?
Yeah, speaking of massive booths at Eurobike, Tax, they've always got a massive footprint there.
It's like a spaceship, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm keen to see what they do with Garmin. Garmin have also got their own booth there, which is pretty big. Well, it's very busy, but we'll have a look at that. Look, I think there's a lot going on from a business perspective there. Policies, procedures, and things like that. There's a lot changing at Tax. Bike-wise, well, is it the year of the smart bike? But wasn't that 2017 or 2018? So
I mean, that must be ready. That must be ready now, surely.
I know things. Let's see. Positive things. Look, as in regards to a new Neo though, look, the Neo 2 was launched only 10 months ago. It wasn't even launched at Eurobike last year. So another Neo within 10 months. We'll see. Quiet trainers, I think, is probably going to be something we'll see for the companies that have figured that out.
Do you think that's a thing now?
Yeah, it has to be. Quiet is the new standard. Even though your music is loud and the fans are loud, the trainers now have to be quiet. So we'll see that. But yeah, look,
whatever became of rocker plates, Shane?
Well, they sort of went side to side of it, and that's about it. Look, we did see, though, Saris/Cyclops doing something over at the Giro Rossa. I was there in person, and that rocking thing that we saw last year, that was out on show at the Trek Segafredo women's team. Sorry, Trek Boldmain. Sorry, I'm getting the team name wrong. The women's team's there at the Giro Rossa, where we were there watching them do the warm up. There was the rocker plate there with a new pair of clothes
that looked like a production version.
Yeah, it looked different. So let's keep an eye on that one. But look, those things are difficult to ship because they're large. They look like child's coffins. So you don't want one of those rocking up on the doorstep. Your neighbours will be asking questions. But look, we shall see. Rocker plates, they haven't taken over the world. And speaking of rocking, the Kinetic R1 has landed here in the Llama Lab. Now, this is the first direct drive smart trainer that does rock side to side. Review pending.
Yes. Am I breaching a confidence if I say your initial finding was a little eyebrow raising?
So far, yes. I've got to go back and make sure that I've got it all set up correctly. Is that saying it politely? I don't think I'm putting out 2,000 watts in a sprint. That's my question that I had for them.
Well,
so am I on the right firmware? Am I doing the right spin downs?
Let's not align the R1 until you've done proper tests. But
we'll give them a chance to have a look at the data and we'll go from there.
2,000 watts would, well, maybe not for you, but it would raise my eyebrows if the ordinary person was kind of capable of knocking out that. Okay, well, as usual, the Zwiftcaster will be at Eurobike, though mine is Shane this year, very sadly, but he's got more important things on his mind. But I'll no doubt be wandering the cavernous halls with someone who's informed and knowledgeable about the kind of stuff Swifters will be interested in hearing about, so stay tuned for that. Nathan, as well as winning races, or Juju, as we now should start calling you, you've been in the test lab with a series of experimental race events. Tell us more.
Well, the idea is that we want to push the racing scene a little bit with the community. So the idea is that we make a couple little tweaks with what's already available in game, right? So we have opportunities to turn certain power-ups on or off. We can maybe make a little bit of change to how fast the pack is going, perhaps. Or, there's little things that we're able to change to try and make things more entertaining for the racers and more entertaining for the broadcast. And we've got all these tools and resources, and you kind of want to aim it well, and the community again can prove in its experience what's going to work and what might not work, right? A lot of games do this with beta tests and things like that. And so we want to create a test space to allow the community to try things and say, yeah, I like that, or no, I didn't like that. And I encourage everybody that wants to join. It's Tuesdays at 1:25 p.m. That's Central Standard Time here in America, or Central Daylight Time, whatever it is right now. And over by you guys, it's 7:25 then, I think, p.m.
Sounds like you're doing very, very good work there, my friend. Keep at it. Okay, well, there goes another hour of our lives, boys, talking about a video game. How do we do that? How do we do that? But we seem to do it on a fairly regular basis. So let's wrap up with a few final thoughts. Have I mentioned I've loved the tour this year? I've been rooted to it. So in this final little section, let's just dwell on the tour a little bit. I mean, I know it will be over by the time a lot of people listen to the podcast, but for those who download straight away, who's going to win? Who is going to win? I am going with... I think I'm probably going to go with Thibaut Pinot, actually. I just think he looks so strong climbing. I'd sort of like Alaphilippe to win it, just because he's a fighter, isn't he? I mean, that stage, the last stage before the rest day, did you see him collapsed on the barriers? And that final 2K, I mean, he had a drool beard, the full works. This was a fully committed rider. I'd kind of like to see him win, but I think it's probably going to be Pinot. Shane, your call?
Just looking at the list here, so Alan Phillip. So we give everyone Australian names here so we can pronounce them. So Alan Phillip, I'd love to see him win. That is a great story, and his fight. But I'm just also looking at tonight's stage, which goes up Col de Vars, the Izuard and the Col du Galibier.
And but the Lotteray before the Galibier. I mean, I've ridden that. It is an absolute horror show. It is absolutely straight. I mean, you can see this avalanche shelter at the top, which is, 5, 6, 7K away. And certainly if you cycle at my level, the damn thing just never gets any closer. And you are just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Lotteray's a really hard climb. Then they go...
And the finish is down. They go down a little bit after the final climb.
They go up the Galibier and then down into Valois, and that is a fast descent. There could be some fireworks on that.
Second place at the moment at 135, Gary Thomas. Again, another Aussie name for Geraint Thomas. I hope for Zwift Marketing that Gary takes the win there for Zwift Marketing. Kruzjek.
Gary for the Tour.
Gary for the Tour. But Kruzjek is also a lot of Jumbo Visma who have had a really, really good tour. But we have had Tony Martin thrown out last night. What is with that? So, look.
Yeah, no. That was worse than it looked, That was worse than it looked. I mean, there was only a little clip on TV, but they were, trying to throw people off, trying to actually shoulder somebody off the road and then, as somebody pointed out, perhaps see them plough into fans. That's not good. That's not good. People thought that decision was harsh.
The excitement of everyone who's watching it, Simon, yourself and Nathan, and just our banter here, it just goes to show the energy that the tour can generate, and it makes me want to go get on a bike and go ride those hills. It is brilliant. So look, I'm going to go have a coffee now at 6 p.m. here. I can't sleep at night at the moment because the tour's on, so I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to be up studying the tour and the stage, and I'll be glued to it. I can't wait.
You still haven't told us who you think is going to win. Gary, are you going to go with Gary?
Yeah, look, I think Gary's going to win it. It's a predictable win, and a win for Zwift.
And a win for Zwift.
Maybe he'll get 8 rides in soon.
Yeah, very good work, Shane. Very kind of you. Nathan, your pick, please.
Yeah, everyone, Julian Alaphilippe, I really like. Everyone's like, yes. And up front, I was like, oh my gosh, can you do this? But my wild card, though, not even wild card. Okay. When somebody who you've watched for years kind of sit in the background and always be really, really strong, but never take the win, and then suddenly they're right there, I think Steven Kruijswijk, I think he wants it. I think that he sat in the background for a little bit too long, and he's making time on Geraint when it matters. And when it really hits the real mountains, Alaphilippe suffers, and he's still there. I think Steven Kruijswijk is going to win.
Yeah, but I mean, Buchmann, nobody talks about Buchmann. He's just been up there the whole time. I mean, it used to be like this.
That was the other one I was going to say too, actually, but I didn't want to shotgun approach and cheat. So, no,
but Bauke Mollema used to be like this. I mean, Bauke Mollema was top 10 in the Tour for years, 4 or 5 years. He was top 10. And nobody ever talked about him. It was really weird. Maybe he just didn't go out and seek attention apart from on the bike, which is very laudable. Well, I'm going to stick with Pinot. I am going to say sorry, Zwift. Sorry, Gary. But I would just, the romantic in me, I would love to see a Frenchman win the Tour for the first time in 35 years. I really would.
It's not a bad pick the way he's attacking those climbs right now. I mean, I'm wondering if he can last. That's the only thing. I'm wondering if he can last with how hard he's going. That's all. So,
well, an exciting few days to come. Once I've edited the podcast, you know where I'll be. I will be on my bottom in front of a screen or two, making sure that I fully enjoy the last 2-3 days, which I just think are going to be absolutely epic. Lovely to talk to you, boys. Anything you want to slip in before we finish, Shane?
No, I'm good. It's been a good episode. I think we've covered everything. I'm looking forward to the next one already, where we can celebrate Gary's win.
Nathan, last chance for a quick plug, fella.
In exactly 58 minutes, I will be broadcasting with Pat Shaw, HDR The Chop, category racing against each other. It is handicap racing. Go check those out on Thursdays. Otherwise, that's my next thing up. I got to go set up the broadcast now. So that's the thing on my mind.
One thing, although there is also the tour might be unknown, one thing is known, which is that I won't get this edited in the next 58 minutes. So people will have to find out.
Well, that's every week. We'll be doing that every week. So you can do that we're doing AHDR the Chop continually. It's a really cool thing where all the categories have a chance to win. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. Okay, check that one out. Lovely to talk to you, boys. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the tour as much as I do. Thanks very much for this episode. Talk to you next time. Goodbye.
All right, see you later, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Cheers, guys.
And that is indeed that for this episode. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Just the usual bit of housekeeping, which is to say thank you to Zwift for continuing to support the Zwiftcast. As you may have seen on Zwiftcast listeners, they've just signed up to do that for another year, so even bigger thanks to them. But also a good time to remind you that Zwift do not influence anything that we say during the production of the podcast. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.